1, 2, 3. We're back with Jaco on piano, playing a funky blues groove in the key of A. I'm using the dominant 7th triads that we've discussed in depth in the last two sections, which are 4-note dominant 7th chords from which we've removed the root or the perfect 5th. This leaves us with a transparent triad which will cut through any arrangement, leaving space for a soloist or a vocalist. This time I'm focusing on the lower middle strings and introducing bass lines using the inner logic described in the Jump Blues guitar course. This type of improvisational interplay between a piano player or a keyboard player and a guitar player is one of the most challenging ways of playing backup. You have to be on your toes all the time, and it feels like you're soloing throughout the whole song. In this groove I'm only using strings 5, 4 and 3, and this is when I'm playing. I'm starting off with an A dominant 7th triad, including a hammer-on from the flatted 3rd to the major 3rd on string 3. This shape is derived from the bar A7 chord at the 5th fret, and it has no root. My bottom note is the perfect 5th on string 5, and I'm leaving the root to be played by Jaco with his left hand. The D7 chord in bar 2 comes in two triad shapes. This is the first one. This one is derived from your run-of-the-mill D7 chord, leaving out the top note, and this one has no perfect 5th. And the next one is one that has a flatted 7th in the bass, and it is rootless. Bottom to top I'm playing the flatted 7th, major 3rd, and perfect 5th. Spotting these rootless triads can be tough. Best to focus on the flatted 7th of the chord, which is in the bottom. 2 frets up from that note is where you'll find the root. On to another A dominant 7th triad in bar 3, another one you won't encounter a lot at the corner bar jam sessions. Bottom to top it's the major 3rd, the flatted 7th, and the root. And you can derive this one from the A over C sharp triad. Both are connected in a melodic line starting on the dominant 7th triad, going to an A6 triad without the perfect 5th, and ending on the A major triad with the 3rd in the bass. Bar 4 features the E dominant 7th triad in the same shapes that we played the D7 triads. So one with the root in the bottom, and one with the flatted 7th down low. We're back on the A7 triad in bar 5, using the same hammer-on that we saw in bar 1. The triadic line on the D7 chord in bar 6 is an exact copy of the one that we saw earlier on the A dominant 7th chord. Pretty neat line. This first D7 triad can also be located by zooming in on the D root, which can be found on string 6, 1 fret higher than the major 3rd that you're playing on string 5. This is your shape. That's your root right there. The A7 triad in bar 7 has the now familiar shape with the flatted 7th in the bottom. There you have it. Locate the root A 2 frets higher on the 5th string. Now the interval that you're playing on the lowest 2 strings, that one right there, is moved up 1 fret to end on the E7 triad shape. This interval is a tritone. Move it up 1 fret to end on the E7 triad shape. Now this cool move from an A7 to an E7 follows the internal harmony of the progression, which makes for a smooth backup part. We're ending the improvisation on an A7 triad without the 5th. The pitch range, rhythmic location, and thickness of your guitar part will influence the total arrangement and the role you take in the backup. Generally, the higher you play and the more you'll be heard, which carries the risk of stepping on the other player's toes. In the lower range, you need to make sure you listen to the bass player's groove and get in sync with it. In this next example, I'm moving my backup part to the higher middle strings, strings 4, 3, and 2. The shapes of the dominant 7th triads will change, and I'm adding another cool triad, a dominant 7th triad without the major 3rd. So with root, perfect 5th, and flatted 7th. One, two, three. I'm on strings 4, 3, and 2, using the same hammer-on to the major 3rd that we saw in the previous example. Again, a rootless triad, but what are we paying the piano player for? We're sticking to bottom to top, flatted 7th, major 3rd, and perfect 5th. Now notice that we're a bit more upfront in the arrangement compared to the previous example because of the higher pitch range. We're sliding into the D7 triad with the root on top. This shape is the top of your garden variety D7 chord, and this one is a favorite of many fine blues players. It's transparent, and by varying the way that you play this one, you're always smack in the middle of the action, between bass and soloist, and right next to any other chord instrument. On the A7 chord in bar 3, we're inserting a quick move to the D triad. Even though the original arrangement might not have this triad in it, you can insert additional triads to color the backup, a feature that we'll discuss at length in one of the next sections. The E7 triad lick is a copy of the D7 lick, moved up 2 frets. The next A7 triad can really not be called a dominant 7th triad anymore. This is it. The major 3rd is removed from it. We're playing bottom to top, root, perfect 5th, flatted 7th. Beautiful sound. The inherent tension of a dominant 7th chord stems from the tritone interval between the major 3rd of the chord and the flatted 7th tritone. Remove one of those notes from the equation and you'll remove the tritone tension. I guess you should call this triad an added flatted 7th chord, no 3rd. It's a great open sounding triad shape, and here's one that you can play on the lower middle strings. The root is on the bottom. And here's another one, flatted 7th on the bottom. Flatted 7th, root, and here's your perfect 5th. Beautiful sound. The D7 triad in the beginning of bar 6 is a slice of the D7 bar chord at the 5th fret. And it's followed by another D7 shape without the major 3rd. That's a bit of a stretch, but a great transparent triad with bottom to top, flatted 7th, root, perfect 5th. And the last progression shows you the smoothness of a backup part with dominant 7th triads in close proximity to each other. Here's your A7 triad, the one without the major 3rd, to E7, to A7. We'll play through another few piano-supported grooves in future sections to show what triads can do for you in different styles. All these triads will give you the heart of the background chords and your target notes for solos and fills. Triads rule.